Good evening, ladies and gents. Welcome to another edition of the College Football Kickoff Show, brought to you on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. It's yours truly, Brandon Rutherman, about to dive into the Week 5 helmet picks. And without further ado, let's get right to it. Buffalo is visiting UConn. This is somewhat of a tricky game to pick from because we don't know which team's going to show up, do we? Buffalo beat Northern Illinois in overtime last week. I wanted to make sure that I got that cleared up because I couldn't remember if it was actually overtime or not. UConn, meanwhile, about as peak and valley as you get for a team that otherwise isn't going to go anywhere. So with that being said, I'm going with Buffalo on the road. Syracuse is hosting Holy Cross. This is an easy one. Got to go with the Cuse, especially considering that Syracuse had a game get away from them last week when they lost to Stanford at home. Hopefully, don't ever call it a cupcake game, all right? A game against Holy Cross out of the FCS might get them back on track. Ole Miss is hosting Kentucky. I find it very interesting considering that Kentucky lost to Georgia by only 1 point, and Kentucky held Georgia to 13 points. So the question becomes, how do you perform the same feat against Jackson Dart and the Ole Miss offense? You don't. Ole Miss. Tulane is hosting South Florida. Tulane got a nice win last week over Louisiana, and it's time to kind of build the dike back up to where they've had it for the last couple of years. South Florida's trying to do the same, and in doing so, I mean, this is one of those games I think where it could go either way. However, I'm going to go with Tulane, as Kool and the Gang now comes on my television. It's too hot, lady. Am I going to have to channel my inner Kool and the Gang? This is not the content you came for, folks. But I'll be happy to oblige. Anyway, taking Tulane over South Florida, yes, we're actually having musical accompaniment, but it doesn't necessarily, I'm just hoping that YouTube doesn't dampen what audience I get out of YouTube just because I got a song playing off of my television. So with that being said, on to the next pick. Nebraska and Purdue, which is on Peacock. I bet they're proud as a peacock, aren't they? Extorting hard-earned money out of normal, regular 9-to-5ers. We're not buying into what you're selling. But I will buy into Nebraska beating Purdue. Nebraska had one get away from them last week. It's time that they get back on track. I want them bowling this year. It's time. You got your quarterback. It has to happen. Especially now in the Big Ten Conference where no win is guaranteed no matter who you play. James Madison is playing host to Ball State, which begs the question, do you do to Ball State what you did to North Carolina? I got that look and sound to me like that guy that used to do the Geico commercials, you know? Can switching to Geico really save you 15% or more on car insurance? Can James Madison score more than 70 points? I did that completely on a whim, folks. J-Mad, get mad, win again. We're now diving into 4 FCS games, beginning with Furman hosting Samford. Furman, not what they were a year ago, but I need a reason and an excuse to sport this purple gem of a helmet created by none other than our wonderful helmet guy, Mr. Kevin Martin. So we're going to take Furman at home over Samford. Southern Illinois is visiting South Dakota. I want to make sure I got that right. In Southern Illinois, last I checked, they're in the top 25 ranking-wise. So now I got to do my due diligence and do the old cheat sheet, courtesy of CBS Sports and its beloved app, which I'm going to get to momentarily and give you an idea of where everything stands. I was looking at the wrong rankings. There we go. FCS coaches poll. Well, you know what? I'm gonna probably do a mulligan with this. Southern Illinois is ranked number 17 in the FCS coaches poll. South Dakota is ranked 5th. I initially, and I had it in my hand here, I was going to take Southern Illinois, but I have to go into the living room. Well, not the living room. I am in the living room. I have to go over to the Field Storm and pull South Dakota out. You know what? Screw it. Let's go for an upset here. Let's go with Southern Illinois to beat South Dakota. I'm sorry. You know, we're 7 minutes into the helmet edition here, and it's not everything goes according to plan. Nothing ever has. But that's what makes it fun. You poke fun at it. And yeah, you never know. You might come off looking like a genius. Which we now bring forth the next pick in the pick parade. Remaining in the FCS, we have Richmond and Elon. And let's keep in the poll here. Do we have anything noteworthy about either of these teams? Well, Richmond is ranked. They're actually tied for 23rd with another team who I will be picking in 4 helmet picks from now. So they're in the conversation. Elon, meanwhile, I look at them. Are they even name-checked amongst those who got votes? No. Easy pick. Richmond. Well, they were already here anyway. I was going to pick them regardless if they were ranked or not. North Dakota is hosting Murray State. I don't even need to look at the rankings for this one because I hate to say this, but Murray State sucks. I said it so bluntly. North Dakota, you got this one. So now we dive back into the FBS for a couple of picks. Texas State is visiting Sam Houston, a vastly improving Sam Houston team at home against a Texas State team that I think will win this one. But I wouldn't be surprised if the game is tightly contested and it comes down to maybe 1 or 2 plays. If Sam Houston is as good as they are going to be, we might just talk about them a little more thoroughly down the road. For now, though, it's only 1 pick, but it's a good one. We're going to go with that one. TCU is visiting Kansas. And Kansas right now is in some dire straits. No, I'm not talking about money for nothing and your chicks for free. I am talking about the fact that Kansas now has a losing streak. Having lost to UNLV, having lost to West Virginia, and now they get a home date with the Horned Frogs. And do I even dare to look at the records? I guess I should. It wouldn't hurt. I mean, we go to the Big 10 or Big 12 in this case, and TCU right now, currently, whoops, he lost it there, 2-2. This could go either way. But I'm beginning to think, I am going to take Kansas in this one, but I'm beginning to think that with their new stadium currently under construction, it's not going to feel like home until they get that stadium built, and then it's going to start feeling more like home. So we're going to take Kansas at home. But if anyone ever dares to think that Kansas is going to be out of the Big 12 championship consideration, you might be right. A few picks ago, I mentioned that another FCS team is currently ranked with the Richmond Spiders, and that would be the Great Danes of Albany. And I'm picking them here against the Black Bears of Maine. I think it's the first time all year we've had Maine in the picks. And probably won't be the last time. After all, conference play has opened up. There will be an assortment of FCS games that I know you probably wouldn't give two crumbs of an F-bomb about. But nevertheless, making those picks only proves that I'm just starting to hone my knowledge in the world of college football. Trying to. And not only trying to, but trying to make it fun for all of you watching, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, or TikTok. And of course, last night we gave our first go-around on the TikTok stage and making picks, and I almost want to think of doing those picks on TikTok as my answer to Amazon covering the NFL. Amazon Prime. That's my equal to TikTok. So there we go. Liberty, Appalachian State. You know, earlier today I was looking again through CBS Sports and their college football Instagram page, and they had a section called the Bottom 25. And I was sad to see that App State is at number 25. So who's number one? I don't know. It's not Akron, but they're in there. I don't know, and I'm not going to search it because by the time I get around to do it, it'll take me about 5 minutes before I make the pick. So I'm going to cut my losses here. This is a reverse psychology pick. App State, get your butts in gear and win. And I'm going to shove this helmet right in your face here. It's Liberty. Liberty, 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 Liberty. I go from Geico to Liberty Mutual. What's next? Progressive? Aren't you glad I don't do commercials with these shows? You know? Anyway, back to the picks. Where are we here? Kind of lost our place there for a while. There is one team that's in that bottom 25. That is San Diego State. Boy, have they fallen into that abyss right now. They're visiting Central Michigan, who pulled out a last-second win last week, and I don't have the clue as to who they beat. Not that that means anything, but you got San Diego State coming into your town. Be hospitable, then beat the crap out of them. How rude. Central Michigan over San Diego State. Speaking of hospitable, Georgia Southern and Georgia State. I'm only taking Georgia State because they have the better looking helmets here. And the helmets that Georgia Southern typically wears, I do have a pocket helmet for that one, but I don't use it because it's too plain. It makes me think of it as an inverse of Penn State from back in the 1960s or something. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work for me. Eastern Michigan visiting Kent. Eastern Michigan in a rout. And it's Kent. I now know that is the worst team in college football right now. And why is it? Well, when you schedule Pitt, Penn State, and Tennessee, of course you're going to be the worst team in college football. Yeah, I know you're making money, but it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you, not one iota. So, Eastern Michigan in a cakewalk. Marshall is hosting Western Michigan, and for the first time, I get to break this one out. I've been so used to using the traditional white ones, but not this time. Hello, black helmet. Yes, indeed. Taking Marshall over Western Michigan. UMass and Miami of Ohio. Well, I find it kind of funny that it could go either way, but Miami of Ohio should win this one at home. Then you have Ohio and Akron. Speaking of which, taking Ohio. This next one's kind of tricky. Yeah, we already got through the Mid-American Conference portion of the helmet picks. So now we have UTSA and East Carolina. Boy, when I looked at that bottom 25 and saw UTSA in there, I had to stop and think, do you really want to pick UTSA? Or do you want to go the other way and take East Carolina? It took no more than assembling the helmets for this show when I discovered that UTSA was name checked as, I think, the 24th worst team right now. Hey, you got to go with some sort of knowledge. Of course, you know, everybody's got their ideas on rankings, and some are just ridiculous. Some aren't factual. Some are just designed to create debate. I do no such thing with those. Wins or losses are all that matters to me, and it ain't so much the picks that I make, it's the teams that I'm picking to win, because I'm going to have my share of wins and losses. Right now we're going into this weekend with 206 wins. So East Carolina is going to be my pick. Sorry about that. Sorry, I didn't mean to drag. Sacramento State, back to the FCS now. Sacramento State and Northern Arizona. I could pick Northern Arizona if Shakira Kwan TGIF Carter was playing for them. If there was an actual player named Shakira Kwan TGIF Carter. If you've ever seen the East-West Bowl sketches from Key and Peele, you know where I'm going with it. After all, that's how I came to liking Rutgers, because of Cosnester Smith. There's probably a few other ones. Nevertheless, I got to make a pick here. We're almost 20 minutes into the show, and we still got some picks to make. We're going to go with Sacramento State on the road. Tennessee Tech and Gardner-Webb. Do I even dare try to figure out? I guess I should. I already got the helmet in front of me. I just want to make sure if I'm making a mistake on the pick or if it's something else. Let's see. We're going to dive in to the FCS rankings again. And the only thing I can see, I do believe, the only Tennessee team that I can see is Chattanooga. There's not a single Tennessee team in the FCS in the top 25. Chattanooga got some votes, but not enough to crack the top 25. So, with this pick, by the way, who are they playing again? Tennessee Tech and Gardner-Webb. Okay. Now I'm going right back. I'm going right back and trying to find if Gardner-Webb is mentioned here, and they are not. So, well, speaking of which, I need to backtrack a little bit. I mentioned Murray State. They got one vote. And I go off and say they suck. Who's Murray State playing again? Who the heck is Murray State playing again? North Dakota. So now I got to go right back to the rankings. And North Dakota's ranked number 8 in the country. Okay, so anyway, here I go again, going from one extreme to another. Tennessee Tech. There will not be a delay for this pick because it's an easy one. Texas over Mississippi State. All right, all right, all right. It won't be long before I start wearing Texas gear. Be on the lookout. Be on the lookout. Meanwhile, who do we have? We gotta scroll. Old Dominion and Bowling Green. As much as I like for Old Dominion to win, Bowling Green is one of the more tougher teams in the Mid-American Conference. Texas A&M found that out last week, only beating the Falcons by 6. So with Bowling Green at home, it's a safe pick here. And we carry on now with Louisiana Tech and FIU at Pitbull Stadium. I'm sorry. And don't ever say that I look like Pitbull, because I don't. I may be bald, but I don't wear like expensive suits. Which begs the question, how come he's not involved in the Diddy scandal? That's totally off topic and probably off limits. Anyway, FIU at home, although I'm not very comfortable making that pick. I may not be comfortable making this pick either, but it's Tennessee Martin and Kennesaw State. And this is basically trying to choose the lesser of two evils. Neither of them got anything in the way of votes for the top 25. The records probably don't say a whole heck of a lot either, so what does one do? Well, you put the blindfold on, get a dart in your hand, and throw it at the dartboard and see where it lands. I suppose maybe in the interest of the underdog mentality, I'm going to go with Kennesaw State, which I think might be the first time that I've ever taken Kennesaw State in a game at any time. I'll tell you who I've picked a lot over the years of doing this. Ohio State. They're at Michigan State in a huge Big Ten test. And I'm trying to think if it's on, it has to be on Peacock. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing a helmet selection. If it was on NBC, then we would be doing it as a lanyard selection. All the more reason why I'm going with the Buckeyes in a game that I won't be able to see. Thank you, Peacock, you money-grubbing bastards. There's one team in college football that nobody has talked about. North Texas hosting Tulsa. Now, for a change at least, I decided to break out an the old school North Texas helmet to make this pick simply because they're doing, by and large, they're doing okay. Tulsa is too, which I think is going to make for a very interesting game, all things considered. I'm just not sure on records per se, but here I go again, looking for records. So the first thing you do is you check, and you check, and you check. Well, I'm looking at, Kennesaw State's 0-3, and I'm picking them. What am I doing? I believe it's the American Athletic where you can find them. Yeah, North Texas is 3-1. Tulsa's 2-2. It's a conference game. It's a big one, so yeah, we're going to go ahead and take North Texas. It's a home game for them. And we stay in the American Athletic Conference with Charlotte and Rice. Both teams 1-3. I'm not much of a fan of Charlotte. I really don't have a reason to be a fan of Charlotte. I am, however, a fan of Rice. Simply because I would like for them to do well, to go to bowl games, kind of put them in that group with Marshall and Memphis. And I know they're a long way off from that territory, but hey, you got to start somewhere. They're trying to. They've been to a bowl game for the last 2 years. And, well, needless to say, if there is a time to start winning, this might be that time. Louisiana, Monroe, and Troy, which now gives me another reason to dive into records. And in those records, I've discovered that Troy is 1-3. Louisiana Monroe is 2-1. It's a road game for the Warhawks, quarterbacked by none other than former Oklahoma Sooner and soon to be named to the All Brando team. There we go. We got a team comprised of players with bizarre names. Quarterback General Booty. General Booty. Louisiana Monroe finally gets a pick in the show thanks to General Booty. Moving right along. Memphis, Middle Tennessee. Memphis was in a shootout with Navy. And the end result was not what Memphis had hoped. You score 44 points most times, you do win. But against Navy, and by the way, watch out for the midshipmen. Heck, you may as well watch out for all the service academies. They're all doing, by and large, pretty well. Army, I know, is. Air Force, slow out of the block, but they got a game coming up that I'll talk about in a couple of picks from now that I think will set them in the right direction. But anyway, as far as the pick goes, Memphis, speaking of bouncing back, we've put away the blue helmet and we're breaking out the gray for this one. And oh, by the way, I don't deal in tiger stripe helmets. That honor only goes to the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay? I'm sorry. Memphis, I like you, but please, you are not the Bengals. Can we just do away with all the tiger stripe uniform combos? I'm sorry. I just can't deal with that. Makes my eyes bleed just looking at them. Unless you know some blue tigers that actual blue tigers. I know a musician named Blue the Tiger, but that's a different story altogether. She's a very good bass player, too. Look her up and listen. It's not exactly up my alley in terms of musical tastes, but She can play a pretty good bass guitar. Heading down so deep I could have drowned. Right on cue. Thank you, Climax Blues Band. How in the hell did we get music involved in this show? My goodness. Anyway, LSU hosting South Alabama. If you watched one of my previous shows, I talked about how South Alabama is just running roughshod right now. 87 points against Northwestern State, 48 against Appalachian State. Now they go to Death Valley in what could likely be another shootout. And you know, the shame of it is that it's tough to pick an underdog who isn't playing like one. They're playing like world beaters and have been for the last couple of weeks. I think they're trying to put themselves in the conversation where they could end up being a conference champion. Not sure where they might fall at, but there's a lot of leapfrogging that's got to be done. And unfortunately, a game against LSU, I think, might eliminate those chances. There are other teams out there. I mentioned Memphis, but they lost. Northern Illinois, I talked about them in the Pick Six show on Sunday. They lost. So if South Alabama's got a chance at this, they have to beat LSU, and unfortunately, I can't see it happening. Oh, it's just ugly in the pit of my stomach that I got to pick Brian Kelly and his LSU Tigers. 3 more picks left. We got New Mexico State, and got to roll with the Aggies at home. Yes, I'm using the white helmet this time. For reasons I may never understand. It's a rivalry that doesn't get talked about a lot, but New Mexico needs to be a winner, and they just have not found the footing. They haven't found it for years, decades even. So New Mexico State should win that one. I mentioned Air Force. They got a game in Wyoming. There's a team who, to my understanding, is the second worst team in college football. It breaks my heart to see Wyoming go from being name-checked as one of the up-and-coming teams in the Mountain West to cellar dwellers. That can only be matched by the fact that Air Force is knocking on the cellar door right now. But thankfully, they're playing against each other, and the winner gets the cellar. Not exactly my idea of a game with a trophy that involves a cellar, but somebody's got to win to stay out of it. I'm going to go with Air Force at home. But Wyoming, you need to get it together and quick. I want to pick you. Not going to happen, though. At least not this week. Finally, Boise State at number 25. Hosting Washington State, who needs to be ranked, at least in their estimation. After all, they beat Washington. They're starting to look like a team that could potentially, I mean, it would have to take a lot of balls to bounce in their favor to be in the conversation, but they got a good quarterback, they got a good offense, and a decent enough defense that could beat most teams in the Mountain West right now. However, they're going to play on the blue turf up in Boise, one of my favorite places in college football, only for it to be further fueled by a fervor and a love for when the games get played when it's really, really cold. And I'm going old school with this bad boy. Yes. The very helmet that kind of kick-started everything. The only time that I don't like Boise State is when they play Oregon. Other than that, I'll take Boise State in almost every game, especially at home. And Boise State, I think, could give Washington State some problems. So, almost 36 minutes into the helmet selection show for your Week 5, and we are about done. Yes, we are done. Quick reminder, the lanyard selections Friday evening, including the 4 big ones which were announced today. Really, I could have announced them earlier in the week, but I needed a day to kind of take my mind off of this because it is a little consuming sometimes trying to get everything ready from week to week, from the field storm displays to finding out which games are going to be the designated big ones, the lanyard selections, the games that are being nationally televised that correspond with them. It's going to go on and on and on till the end of the season. I mean, I got my routine down to a T, folks. I do. And it's wonderful to do it. Oh, and by the way, before I get out of here, there is a thing called homecoming. W&J's got its homecoming game Saturday against Carnegie Mellon, who, by the way, is the number 15 team in the country in Division III. Both teams are coming in 3-0, and for Carnegie Mellon, this is their last season in the President's Athletic Conference. They're moving into the Centennial Conference next year. And it's a big one. It is definitely a big one. However, I'm working homecoming, so I'm going to miss the early part of the game, but make no mistake, considering that I will be putting in some quality hours on the big day Saturday, it's more so when we get to the end of the day and we start channeling up more adrenaline, more energy to get down to Cameron and cheer the boys on. It's going to be a fun Saturday. It always is when I'm down at Cameron, but it's even more fun when I get to do the college football kickoff show. And we will be back there for a stretch of 3 straight weeks in October. Saturday, October the 12th, 19th, and the 26th. The 19th, of course, a red letter date circled when the current number 8 team in D3, the Grove City Wolverines, will be in town in a game in prime time against my beloved W&J Presidents. So, just thought I'd throw that out there. And with that, we close the book on the helmet edition for Week 5 of the College Football Kickoff Show. We will be back Friday evening with the lanyard selections. Until then, from all of me to all of you, BR signing off for the College Football Kickoff Show. Good night, everybody.